Subject matter of these stories could be sensitive to some viewers, and as always, viewer discretion is advised. And if you have a story you want to send my way, go to astheravendreams.com and click the link that says to send your story my way. And thank you, of course. This happened to me when I was around 15, in my sophomore year of high school. I played drums in band, was on the track team, and I took the weights class, so I'd like to think that I was a semi-popular and fit guy. I had a lot of friends and quite a few girls that had crushes on me, so I never really had a dull moment. I also tended to stay out late with my friends. We never really did anything that would get us in legal trouble, but I think we pushed our limits at times. This situation occurred one weekend when I went to my friend Dylan's birthday party. At our age, we just wanted to hang out with our friends, whereas some of our moms still thought we were kids and wanted to have a full-blown party with games and stuff. Thankfully, Dylan was able to come to an agreement with his mom. He had a party with a few friends and a few family members, but then we had an extra few hours after cake and ice cream to chill. When I got there, I saw a few older people, his aunt and uncle, and I cringed thinking we were going to do weird pin the tail or piñata games. And that's when he explained to me that I was one of the few he invited over earlier during the family part of the party. After a few hours, though, that's when more of our friends started showing up. His house was huge, at least to my younger self. He had 2 living rooms, which I thought was really cool, because they had their Xbox and Wii set up in the back living room, as well as a karaoke machine. His older sister thought she was going to be the next American Idol star. So, us kids got to be left alone, while his parents and other family members stayed in the front. I had 2 siblings, me being the oldest, and we had a Wii that had to stay in the living room, but if someone was watching TV, then we couldn't play it or take it to my room, since I had a TV in there. So with Dylan's family having a specific room to play in any time, I thought he was lucky. There were a few of us that showed up and stayed the whole time, that being me, Dylan, Cody, Jocelyn, Sydney, and her friend Ashlyn. We were taking turns playing games and watching Dylan change the wheels on his skateboard that he just got. The girls were talking to themselves quietly, but then would also talk to us briefly to make some kind of joke or ask a question. After a few, and us still being kids, we were starting to get bored, but we weren't ready to leave yet. So the girls decided we should play some kind of truth or dare style game. I don't remember exactly how they did it, but it was like a combination of charades, but we put different questions or dares in like a hat, but then had to pick a name first to do it, so it was more randomized. Now, before I continue, I wanted to explain that me and Jocelyn dated very briefly. We hung out together, held hands, and made out, but that was it. We didn't really click, so we both decided that we worked better as friends and just called it off. Sydney was pretty cool. We had hung out before, but nothing too close. And Ashlyn, we just saw her in passing, really. We were in one class together and were partnered together, but we never talked outside of that. I didn't even have her number like I did the other 2 girls there. Anyways, we all agreed, being teens, thinking we would get to show off or something, and we all started writing our questions or dares. Of course, as it would turn out, one of the questions that would come up is if you had a crush on anyone, and Ashlyn got it. She said she did, and it was someone here, so Insert awkward giggling from everybody. Then I got a dare to kiss someone, and the name that I pulled was Ashlyn. I didn't think much of it, but she turned beet red and couldn't stop smiling and giggling. Finally, Sydney pushed her to get it over with, and we did the dare and moved on. From then, her color didn't really change, and I would catch her looking at me and smiling. I was a young kid, so I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me feel good about myself. I still didn't really know her, though, and what she was like, so I didn't have an attraction there. The night continued as such. Random embarrassing facts learned. A few people had to kiss others and sing duets together, but it was an alright night. Later on, as everyone was leaving, Ashlyn gave me a quick hug, nearly knocking me back, and ran out the door, saying something to Sydney. As I was about to leave, Dylan made a comment to me about Ashlyn liking me. He told me that Sydney specifically asked if I was going to be there, and if she could bring a friend, but was told not to tell me. It was pretty obvious, so I went about my night knowing I probably just made hers. I thought to myself, if I got to know her, that she might be my type, and we maybe could actually hit it off. Nope. Cue the stalker vibes. Since Ashlyn was in the one class, she called me over when I walked in to have me sit by her, which was fine. She looked different. She was wearing makeup, a low-cut shirt, and had straightened her hair. I will say that she had natural, really curly hair, like the girl from the movie Brave, which I loved, and it looked great on her, so it was weird seeing it straight. She tried being very open and talkative, but she wasn't used to it, so it was a little awkward, but nothing too bad. She didn't make any moves or anything, though, but I think that was her still being too shy. I told her she looked nice, though, but it seemed to fluster her more. When class ended, she would go talk to Sydney and whisper and giggle as I walked by. Then, I started getting notes shoved in my locker through the vent. They would say different things from, "You're cute," "I want you," "You plus me after school," just things like that. It was safe to assume who it was from. It was fine, even though there were multiples a day, every single day, but then it started going over when there was one taped to the front of my locker. People were passing by, laughing and taking pictures, until I saw what it was. It was a picture of me at the track field with hearts and "Love you always" written on it. Like someone took a crappy picture of me on the field. It was a bit embarrassing, so I pulled it off, crumpled it, and tossed it in my locker. I ran late to the class with Ashlyn in it, so I ended up sitting in the front and not next to her. When class ended, she seemed to leave pretty quickly, but didn't act like her normal self. She stopped and talked to Sydney, and they just looked at me as I walked by. I was thinking maybe she realized she went too far, so I felt no reason to say anything and carried on. That wouldn't stop, though. And not only did I continue to get notes, but they got more aggressive. Like, "I miss you. When you avoid me, it makes me sad." Things like that. Then I started getting texts. I had limited text and talk at the time, so if I went over too many or got close, my parents made sure to tell me. So at first, when I got something saying, "Hey cutie," I was fine with it. I asked who it was, and they said, "Your secret admirer." I asked if it was the same person that sent the notes, and they said yes. They asked me if I liked them, and that's when I said the one on the outside was too much and kind of weird, and they apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. And I left it at that, thinking, hey, now we don't have to mention it in person and be weird about it. They started asking me more about me, and this would carry on for the next few weeks. I told them I was limited on time, so we could always hang out together instead, and they said this was easier for them, so I agreed, but still said that I was limited. That didn't stop the texts or even calls that I would get in the middle of class, while eating dinner with my family, at midnight when I was trying to sleep. When they did call, I answered a few times, but they just sat there silently. It was just weird, but also frustrating because I didn't expect this from Ashlyn, or at least she didn't seem the clingy type. But as time went on, the calls and texts continued, and I even started getting pictures of myself again, on the track field, with risque text. At one point, I had to pair up for another project in class, and the girl that I was paired with was sent a threatening letter about staying away from their man, or else she would get hurt. She asked to be paired with someone else, and then I had to have a meeting with the teacher asking who I was with because it was going to be a problem. And she had a hard time believing me and explained the note to me. I was already getting annoyed. My parents got on to me about my phone time. The notes and guilt trips from someone I wasn't even dating were getting old. And now, she's threatening people and saying that we're together. All this, and she won't even hardly talk to me outside of class? Why would you pretend to be my girlfriend then? So, I decided to confront her about it. I went to the class that we were both in, walked past her desk as she motioned for me, smiling. I just looked past her and sat elsewhere. I looked over at her once when she wasn't, and she looked nervous. Then, when class ended, I approached her, and as she started saying something, I cut her off and told her to knock it off. I said something along the lines of, "I don't know how you got my number, but lose it. You are insane and way too dramatic and clingy. You are not the person I thought you were, and I am not interested and never will be interested in you, so leave me alone." I was really, really mean, and to this day I still feel bad about it. She again turned red, and I could see the tears in her eyes as she ran down the hall. She went right past Sydney, who I could tell was pissed at me, and ran after her. I went through the rest of the day not hearing or seeing her, but I felt horrible. I tried to contact her at the number that texted me, but I didn't get a response. I tried texting Sydney, and she actually demanded that we talk about it, so I called her. I started telling her about everything, and she seemed so dumbfounded by it all, like she had never heard about any of this. Being such good friends with her, it was hard to believe. However, she explained to me that she asked Ashlyn on several occasions if she wanted my number, but she always said no, because she wanted to get it from me. Then, how did she get my number? I told her about the notes, and she said that she knew she sent one, but it just had her number on it, and she had taped it on the outside. But I never got that one. She said she remembered the one of me taped on the outside, and she had talked to Ashlyn about it because she was upset thinking I was seeing someone, and that thought started to solidify since I didn't sit by her that day, and going forward. As we talked more, the things I told her about, she swore Ashlyn did not do or wouldn't do. So then, I argued who else would do that then, and we had no idea. That's when Sydney got a call from Ashlyn, so she said she would call me back. She did tell Ashlyn she wanted to hang out with her that day to talk about things, but that she wanted me to be there too to figure things out. I was hesitant, but I agreed. She lived a few blocks over, so I just walked over there, and Ashlyn ended up getting dropped off there. I stayed out back playing with her little brother while they talked, and then she came and got me. I was glad that Sydney was so quick on things, because that prompt meetup really cleared things up. Ashlyn told Sydney what had happened, and then she came and got me, and Ashlyn looked horrified that I was there. Before she could take off, though, Sydney stopped her and explained to her what was happening. I helped explain the details and confirmed it all by the look on her face. It told me that none of this was her. Yet, she was still apologizing. I should have been the one apologizing because I had gone off on her, and thankfully, she accepted and understood. The mystery was still there, though. Who the hell was behind this? That's when Sydney explained why she'd had her come over. Ashlyn had gotten a threatening text saying to stay away from me, or that she would get beat, too. However, this person was dumb enough to use the same number they were texting me from, pretending to be Ashlyn. So who was it? Sid grabbed their home phone and started calling the number. A guy answered the phone at first, but Sydney, being the genius she is, told them, "Yeah, I missed a call from this number, but I don't know who this is. I go to the name of our high school." Then, the guy that answered yelled, "Jocelyn, someone from school's on the phone?" And that's when we heard shuffling and then the call was disconnected. Then, it all started to make sense. At least, some. It was my friend Jocelyn. She was pretending to be Ashlyn, semi-stalking me at the field and in my class, which would make sense since she was in the class where I was paired up with the girl that changed partners. She probably took the note off my locker with Ashlyn's number, getting hers and then writing all the other ones, making Ashlyn look crazy. To do what? Drive me away from her, I guess? Sydney didn't really know much about Jocelyn, but left me to confront her instead, and I again apologized to both of them. They told me to stay and hang out, but I was feeling guilty and awkward, so I left. I wanted to take care of things with Jocelyn anyway. I got home and I called her number that I had saved, and learned that it had been disconnected. So, it would seem to me that she got a new number and decided to use that to her advantage. It wasn't all that interesting when she was confronted, though. It was before school started, while we were waiting for class to start. Words were said, and I think I sufficiently embarrassed her too. We don't talk anymore, but she did start dating one of my friends, which, more power to them, I suppose. It keeps her occupied. But me and Ashlyn, we turned out fine. We started hanging out more and actually started dating too. She teases me about it all the time, but I was just glad to move past it. And if I never have a weird stalker or crush again, it would be too soon. So, I've worked in a couple hotels in the past, mainly at the front desk dealing directly with guests. I must say that I loved working the graveyard shifts. You never know what kind of interesting situations you might encounter. It always seemed fun, especially during the holidays. And that day, we were full. No more check-ins for me, so it was going to be a light night. I always had an accountant and a security guard in the lobby during my shift, but since it was a calm night, the accountant went to find a place to nap after he was done, and I honestly don't know where the guard was. They thought since there was no more check-ins, I should be fine. I was going through the log from the last shift, and I found a sticky note with my name, and it also said, "Beware 305. No details or anything. I was looking at the monitor with the cameras and clicked on the screen that showed the hallway where room 305 was. I left it there while I finished my work. At around 3, I was still alone, and from the corner of my eye, I saw movement on the monitor. It was a guy. He seemed pretty regular, not creepy at all. He got closer to the front desk and requested his room to be cleaned. We didn't offer 24/7 housekeeping, so I informed him of that. Then you come clean. I sleep all day and want my cleaning done during the night. I told him very politely that I couldn't do that, and before I could keep explaining, he asked me for my zodiac sign. I answered, a bit confused. All of a sudden, he changes the subject. He was now talking about how he was a warrior in one of his past lives, and that in this life he comes from a long line of warriors. He kept changing the subject every 2 minutes, and I couldn't keep up. And then suddenly, so should we start heading up to my room? Again, I explained. He started getting this weird look on his face, like frustration. He just turned around and walked up to his room. 20 minutes later, I saw him on the monitor coming down again. This time he took the stairs and stopped before turning into the lobby. He was standing there watching me through a pillar. I was standing in front of the monitor, so it may have looked like I was just working. He then started looking around, almost like he was checking if there was any way to get closer without me knowing. I started to get a bit freaked out. It literally looked like he was stalking me. He went up one flight of stairs and then got in the elevator down to the lobby. I imagine he did not know that I had access to the cameras. He came closer to the front desk again and requested a tray with waters, tea, and milk. I called the kitchen to place the order, and I let him know that it would be taken up. He asked again what time I was going to go clean, and I just told him at 7 a.m., when housekeeping arrives. I started trying to locate the guard. At this point, I was getting concerned for my safety. This guy was starting to act a bit erratic. Before he turns to leave, he gave me an expecting look, opening his eyes wide. I have like 20 types of drugs in my system right now. That's why I'm awake and I sleep all day. My mind is going 1,000 miles per hour right now. I didn't know how to answer, honestly, so I asked him if he needed medical assistance. He laughed and asked if I wanted to join him for tea. I declined and he left for his room once again. After room service delivered the tea, the waiter went by the front desk. Hey, so we need security to be here with you. The guy in 305 just asked me if he could use our stairs to get to the front desk without being seen, but first he offered me money to convince you to go to his room. I was freaked out for sure, but since another person knew of the situation, it gave me a sense of safety, I guess. The waiter left me to try to go look for the security guard. At 5 a.m., the guest comes out of his room again. This time he's headed for the maintenance stairs. I didn't have access to the cameras there, but I knew he couldn't get close to me without me seeing him, so I didn't feel in any danger, really. The waiter showed up and told me that one of the security guards caught the guest trying to get to the front desk. The guest kept repeating that it was my idea, and that I had been trying to go to his room all night, and that I told him to go through those stairs. The guard made a report about the incident, and added what the guest said about me, so it became a bit of a big deal with upper management, because it was made to look like the guest was right. Turned out, while they were investigating the situation, some of the female staff claimed that he tried to get them into his room under any pretext. But since the attempts were really obvious, and he seemed out of it, they would just go in group or send a male coworker. We've had creeps in the past, but this guy took the prize. The guard that was supposed to be with me fell asleep in the bathroom, and was suspended for that. The accountant was reprimanded for leaving me alone, and they were horrible to work with after that because they claimed it was my fault. Management tended to always be on the guest's side for any type of situation, so no one thought of reporting this guest. They would have fired me for what he said had it not been for the waiter speaking up. Edit. It was usual for the staff to not report suspicious activity because that brings negative attention to the hotel. The best we could do was be cautious and just warn each other about creepy guests. Sorry if my spelling is off. I'm not the best writer and I'm doing this on my phone. Something that is creepy about this story is that it just happened during Halloween about a month ago. By the way, the story needs to be told in 2 different points of view for it to make sense, so it might be a little long. My 14-year-old thinks he's too old to trick or treat at 14 now, so he invited a friend this year to hand out candy and watch football on our porch. I also have toddlers with me, so my wife took them around the neighborhood. Before we left, we told the boys simple rules. 1, 2 pieces of candy for each person. 2, don't talk to strangers too much, just say, "Hey, how are you doing?" or something. And 3, no matter what, do not let anyone in the house, period. So, me and my wife and younger kids walk down the hill to start at the front of the neighborhood and go up. We meet some nice families, but we just had the kids say trick or treat and then go to the next house. We were walking and talking with our kids when a tall man with a creepy pig mask came up to us. He stopped and looked at us. He looked to be in his late 40s. He was by himself. No kids, no friends. I thought it was weird, but I guessed that he really liked candy. And then he says to us, "Go Braves." By the way, we live in Atlanta and the Braves were in the World Series at the time. We said "Go Braves" even though we're Astros fans, but just trying to be friendly. He then goes up to my 3-year-old and says, "If you want the Braves to win, you should give me your candy." I thought that was weird, but we just laughed and left him alone. And then we got back. The boys were yelling at the game. They had eaten a lot of candy and we asked if they had fun, and they said yes they did. Then I asked if they saw a creepy man in a pig mask, and they said yes and told us this. I told my son to text me his side of the story for the next part. Since I'm too old for trick-or-treating, I invited a friend over to watch football and hand out/eat all the candy for Halloween. For the story, I'll call my friend G. G came over and we were having fun, watching football, handing out candy. Some people that we knew would come by and we would say hi. Then, we heard a man humming, and we saw him come around the corner. He was wearing a creepy pig mask in all black. We could only see his ears and hands. He came up and mumbled something to us. After asking him to repeat himself multiple times, we figured out what he was saying. "Who's winning the game?" We replied saying, "Saints." We handed him 2 pieces of candy and he said more. I ignored him at first and then he said loudly, "More." So we said okay and gave him 3 more pieces. After he was walking off the porch, he said, "Go Braves." We didn't respond because I'm an Astro fans, and then I got the guts to yell, "Astros in 6. He turned around and looked at us. Then he grabbed something out of his pocket. It was a knife, and I could tell it was real. He was just staring at us and walked away. We were creeped out, but he didn't come back. So, creepy dude that lives in my neighborhood with the pig mask, let's not meet again. And by the way, just to add to this, when he was talking to me and my wife, we did see a knife in his pocket. Being followed home is not uncommon where I'm from, and it's sadly not rare either. Men will see you walk at night, or even day sometimes, and catcall to get your attention. No matter how often it happens, it's not something you can get used to, and it's scary to be in that situation. And this night, I was with my ex walking him home. He was a horrible boyfriend, and he got extremely drunk, forcing me to walk him home and make sure he goes inside. I asked him to call a taxi for me because my phone was dead, and he agreed and went inside. I stood outside of his apartment waiting, but as time went by, I realized the taxi was probably not coming. At the time, I thought that they had forgotten to send a car, but now I realize that my ex probably didn't even call, he just passed out. It was December, and it was extremely cold outside. I was angry at my ex for getting drunk, angry at the taxi company for forgetting to send a car, angry at everything and everybody. It was almost midnight, and if you read my previous experiences, you'll understand why I didn't want to walk home even though it was a 15-minute walk. As I'm waiting, I see a Jeep park a little further away from me. The guy gets out of the car and leans on it, just staring at me. After a couple of minutes, I realize that he's waiting on me to approach him, and if I don't, he will be the one to make the move. I panic and start thinking about what to do. I have two options. One is to walk home and risk him coming onto my street, which is dark and a great place to hurt someone. A 15-minute walk is plenty of time to get hurt. Or, my second option is to walk to my grandma's house, which is 5 minutes away, but the whole street to her is dark and pretty much empty. She lives on a street that is mostly stores and offices. She refused to sell her house when the other people did, so there aren't many houses around her. I couldn't go into my ex's apartment because I had to be buzzed in, and it was midnight. I decided to go to my grandma's and quickly started to walk. The guy, of course, gets into his car and starts driving behind me. I pretend that I'm on a call in hopes that he wouldn't do anything if I was on the phone with someone. As soon as I see my grandma's house, I start running and quickly go into her yard. Everyone is asleep, so my best bet is to ring the bell because I don't have a key and just hope that someone might be awake. Thankfully, my uncle is. I tell him someone's following me. He drives the Jeep and I'm scared that he might hurt me. My uncle does not hesitate. He runs out into the cold December night in his shorts and a t-shirt and sees the guy. He yells to me, "Is this him?" The guy sees this and pretends he's on the phone and gets into his car and drives away. My uncle calls a taxi for me and waits until the taxi gets there. I thought that would be it. As soon as I got into the taxi, I felt safe. I tell the driver my address, and as soon as he turns, we see the car. He's then trying to follow the taxi. At this point, I have absolutely no clue what his intentions are. Is he armed? Does he want to hurt me because I got my uncle on him? I start crying and quickly explain to the driver what's going on. He was an older gentleman, and I felt like he's been waiting on this moment his whole life. He told me not to worry and that he will lose him, and he won't allow for the guy to see where I live. He did lose him, mostly because the Jeep guy gave up and just left, but the taxi driver got to feel like a hero, and I got to get home safely. She appeared in March. The strange girl wrote on my Instagram. She simply asked strange questions and, for a long time, didn't touch on any other main topic. But Then she began to ask about me and my man, if I trust him, where he's from, and stuff like that. Perhaps it was our mistake to answer her and she should be ignored. Within a few days, she received some information from us and very successfully set everything up for herself. She said that my man talked to her a year ago and broke her heart. He couldn't remember her, it was too long ago. It turned out that they really communicated some time ago, but the communication stopped because he deleted his profile in the social networks where they communicated, and nothing serious could have happened. I mean, what could have happened in a couple of weeks of chatting online? She'd decided for herself something that just didn't exist. She didn't even know him as a person, but managed to accuse him of everything that was possible. She waited for a year and said that she was struggling with her internal problems, but in the end, she decided that she needed to give us some nerves. Somehow, she found me. But as we later found out, he mentioned me in a conversation with her, and she remembered it. As she said, she wrote to many people while looking for me. The scale of her quest and her tenacity are surprising. She couldn't say what she wanted from us. She invented some ridiculous stories, introduced herself as different people. At the very beginning, she said that it wasn't her, but her sister who communicated with him. And only after a long time and hysterics, the story became a little more understandable. She turned out to just be offended and an unbalanced girl with her dissatisfaction, and decided to ruin the lives of people she didn't even know. She called me, threw tantrums, threatened me, and at first it was frightening. Everything went in, including threats to life, and now we know that she will never go beyond words. We still don't know who she is. In fact, how she looks, and we even doubt her name. She created different accounts, and we've never seen her. We know that she has a mental disorder and that she's now in a relationship, but this isn't preventing her from communicating with us. During this half a year, she either disappeared or reappeared. At first, she threatened us, and then said that she just wanted to communicate with me. Periodically, her anger poured out on me, as she said, for the fact that I took the side of my man in this situation. Not so long ago, she appeared again and agreed that we should meet, because I want to know who she is and to try to understand her. But most likely, she'll just cancel again, as all my attempts to see her have been unsuccessful. Ah yes, creepy encounter and stalker stories. Stories that make you look around and think, man, people are hella messed up, aren't they? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this collection of stories. I know I did. And I hope that you learned something from them. I guess the first one we could say, don't assume who's communicating with you, I guess. Kind of a strange situation. Kind of a crappy situation to be in. Feel sorry for everyone involved in that one. The hotel guest, that one's just creepy. The other two about being followed, obviously, those are terrifying as well. And the Halloween pig mask, man, yeah, that one, no thank you. That one's too much. That one's freaky. Again, hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you're not new, well, then don't hit it. It'll unsub you. You know the deal. I'm not going to go through that whole spiel again. My voice is cracking, is gone, is scratchy. And I'm trying my damnedest to keep this going right now, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap up this outro. Yep, wrapping up the outro. Join memberships, $1 Patreon, access early, 24 hours, stuff like that. There you go. Hope to see you on the next video. But of course, until then, my friend, sleep well.